Can you learn a language in 24 hours? That is a question I was trying to answer with the experiment I conducted last weekend, in which I spent 24 hours straight, no sleep, no rest, trying to learn Danish. In this video, I'm going to give you the conclusions to that experiment. And I'm going to answer the question, is it possible to learn a language in 24 hours? And would I recommend trying to do that? And I'm going to give you the answer right now. The answer to both of them is no. You can't learn a language well in 24 hours, at least not 24 hours in a row. We'll talk later about if you can get it done in 24 hours divided in several days. We'll talk about that later, and maybe that's an interesting subject for more experiments. But no, I wouldn't recommend trying to learn a language 24 hours in a row because for a variety of reasons, really. Um, Main one being that sleeping is really important, and after a certain amount of hours, your energy and attention levels just plummet. They go down like a shitcoin that has been pump and dumped, and you don't retain information nearly as well. And the more you get going, the worse it gets. So I can already tell you that the second half of those 24 hours were probably a complete waste of time. In fact, I'm pretty sure I would remember more if I just spent 6 hours or 8 hours maximum doing high quality work and then got a really good night of sleep. Because sleeping is really important. Space repetition is also really important. That is why probably spreading those 24 hours in, I don't know, 4 days, six hours a day, 4 days, or even, I don't know, 12 days, 2 hours a day, is much more effective than 24 hours in a row. Anyway, I'm gonna give you the breakdown of how it went. The language chosen was Danish because it's a Germanic language. Sounds interesting. Pronunciation is difficult, but grammar and vocabulary are relatively easy for someone who speaks English and German and Dutch. But vocabulary was quite challenging, more than I thought. Um, how much I learned? I think I understand pretty well, but I mostly learned passively. A lot of what I learned, I wouldn't say it's gone. It's not gone completely. I can understand it if I hear it, but I can't think of it fast enough to form sentences. I could if I have to, but I'll sound pretty special. And a lot of vocab that I memorized using mnemonics, especially the second part of the experiment. I created mnemonics for more than 1,000 words. I've done this before with other languages, but I spent the whole day doing mnemonics. So this time, because I was doing, and this was another mistake I made, because I was doing so many different techniques to say at the same time, and I tried to do so much of everything. Um, my efforts were spread out way too thin, and by the time like doing mnemonics when you're exhausted, not very effective because or doing anything really. If you do input when you're exhausted, if you're reviewing something by listening, something that you already understand at 80, 90%, okay, then it's not bad. If you're just listening and you're chilling. But trying to learn, actively trying to learn something when you're exhausted, doesn't work for the most part. That's why cramming when you're a student, waiting, like not doing anything the whole semester and then cramming the last couple of days, it doesn't really work all that well. If you spread the same amount of hours, but throughout several weeks, it's going to be way more effective. So spreading my efforts to think that was another problem. I'm still exhausted after a couple of days because, yeah, I slept yesterday, but again, now my sleep routine's messed up, and yeah, that's another reason why I wouldn't recommend doing this. So Uh, Again, how did I do it? If you go watch my pre-experiment video, you'll see that I did plan on using language islands and mass sentences. That was another mistake. So, of course, you should use both language islands for the most highest frequency sentences that you want to learn. And then you use shadowing and retrieval practice to learn those sentences really well to be able to use them. So that way you achieve fluency with 1,000 sentences, more or less. And you could do this fairly quickly. But if you do this only half the time, and then the other you're trying to learn 20,000 more sentences from the mass sentences, which are designed to improve your comprehension, you're just trying to do two things at the same time. And if you're trying to learn a language in 3 months, yes, you can do both these things at the same time. You do an hour each a day or half an hour each a day, and you'll improve very quickly. Both your comprehension and your speaking will improve. But if you've got just one day, that was a big mistake. I should have taken the language islands and spent the whole day just learning the language islands. Uh, I would have been able to speak way more. I am able to say a bunch of stuff, but not as much as if I had focused only on the language islands. Because the mass sentences, the thing is, you need time with them. They're much more time effective than just watching random videos, for example. Way more effective, 10 times more effective. But still, they require some time to to learn because it's a lot of text and a lot of audio. And if you listen and read at the same time, just for one day, even if you spend 8 hours reading while listening, you don't finish the list, and you need to read and listen to the list several times for you to remember the words well, or more or less, So it just it there wasn't enough time to do the mass sentences, so it was a waste. So it would have been better not to even try and learn the mass sentences later in the learning process. Because if the goal is to speak, let's focus on speaking. So I should have uh, just focused on the language islands and only done that. Language islands worked pretty well, but again, once you're exhausted, it just doesn't stick the same way. You're just tired, and it doesn't matter how many times you drill them. Okay, I kept improving a little bit, but I could notice that by the end, or even after 8 or 10 hours of learning, I just couldn't remember stuff as well. And by the end, my brain was fried, and I just couldn't. The time By the time I was doing that short videos speaking Danish, yeah, I was just ready to just like collapse. You shouldn't do this to yourself. Don't do it. So I got some comments here. Um, okay, this guy says that he expected more using language islands and that I didn't speak much in the. Though that was after 24 hours straight of studying, no sleep, completely exhausted, and boy, you wanted me to have a conversation with myself. Like, hello, good morning. What's your name? My name is Mika. Nice to meet you. Blah, blah. Like, language islands are sentences, especially in the beginning. The sentences for specific situations and conversations, right? So if you learn in Spanish, you don't learn the sentences that you'll use in a YouTube video. What am I going to talk about in a YouTube video? I've done this, I've done that. This is how I learned. Maybe I should start learning those with the language islands. But if you go to have a conversation in the language, yeah, maybe I should just for the next language just learn sentences that I'll use on a video and then make a 10-minute video. I could do that. Yeah, maybe I'll choose another language and I'll try that. That'll be easy actually. Uh, 10, 15-minute video speaking a language. I can prepare that in 24 hours, no problem, and with good pronunciation. But if let's say you learn in Spanish and you're using language islands, your language islands are going to be if you're starting from scratch, your language elements are going to be like, I've got them here. Yeah. Hello, good morning, good evening. What's your name? My name is Mika. Nice to meet you. Where are you from? I'm from Basque Country. Oh, really? What are you from? And where are you from? And what are you doing here? I'm here on holiday. What about you? And no, I live here. Oh, really? Blah, blah, blah. And that's this kind of stuff that you talk when you meet strangers somewhere. This is the kind of stuff. This is the kind of conversation you have. But should have maybe I should have talked to myself like Gollum from the Lord of the Rings. Just have a conversation with myself. It'd be especially creepy after while being sleep deprived and exhausted. But anyway, yeah, those are sentences for language islands. That's one of them. Like meeting people, basic small talk, and then personal information, where from, blah blah blah. Then work, things like why you there, travel, things you normally do, hobbies, that kind of stuff. So could I make a 10-minute video talking about that kind of thing? Yeah, I could. In fact, let's do that next time. That's what language islands are for. If you want me to give you a sales presentation in a specific language or talk about whatever, the Crusades or, or I don't know, the Eastern Front in World War II, I could. You just prepare your language islands. I just don't have language islands for that because I don't talk about those things normally. You could theoretically create language, not theoretically, you could create language islands in your own language and pretend you know about something as well, even if you don't know much. If you memorize the lines. Comments. I don't remember the next. Oh yeah, sleeping is really important. Yeah, sleeping is really important. Again, I noticed that, and the next day as well. If I had done less than half, I would remember more. But because I was so tired by the end, and because of then getting bad sleep, because it was a weird time to sleep, your brain just doesn't remember as well. So getting enough sleep, and this is after doing. I did all the plant stuff, like mini breaks, short meditation sessions, non-sleep, deep rest, all that stuff. I try to do it regularly while studying. But even then, if you're exhausted, you're exhausted. That you can compensate for it a little bit, but nothing beats a good night's sleep. And real learning happens when you need spaced repetition and you need sleep in between. So you learn effectively. You need both. You need effective studying, which I did, effective techniques. I learned the right way. But if your energy and attention levels are really low, even the most effective techniques won't be as effective. So you need effective techniques, and then you need good rest, and then effective techniques the next day, and then rest, and then effective planning. And this way you learn fast. But if it's just one day, it's going to be impossible, I think. Except I'm going to give you one exception in the end, but there's an exception, but we'll talk about it later. So yeah, sleep really important. The comment says, yeah, I completely agree with you. Another comment says 12 hours a day for 2 days or 8 hours a day for 3 days would have been much more effective. Yes, that's going to be the next experiment. Not this weekend because I've got a wine trip going to Rioja, but um, maybe in a couple of weeks I can try another language, maybe a Slavic language, and maybe do 2 days of 12 hours a day and see what happens. I assume I'll do way better. than here. And then maybe a month from now, I try 8 hours, 3 days in a row. That's also, maybe I could do that like 12 by 2, 8 by 3, 6 by 4, 4 by 6, 2 by 2, 2 by 12, and 1 by 24, which would be an hour a day for 24 days. Maybe I try all of them, see which one works best. Obviously, none of them work better than 1 or 2 hours a day for 3 months, every single day, obviously. But it just, for the sake of, for science, let's just try things. It's just for curiosity. Um, but yeah, doing 12 hours a day, 2 days in a row, with enough sleep in between, probably way more effective. Let's try that next. Let's try something Slavic. Let's try that. Um, and the exception, I was gonna, yeah, the last thing, last comments before the end of the video. I don't know if you know about this guy, but I mean, I've recommended his book before. It's called Ramon Campayo. He's a Spanish memory expert. And so lots of world records and memorization of vocabulary, no vocabulary, not language, just in general. Memorizing lists of numbers, insane thing, like memorizing, I don't know, like 60 something binary numbers in a second, things like that. Insane, truly insane feats of memorization, like speed memorization. And this guy learned German, okay, not well, but serviceable German in an afternoon when he was flying to Germany to give a talk there about memorization techniques. And he just learned his speech, memorized all the vocab, and then because German grammar is quite complicated, but if you just use wir and sie, so like we, and then formal you, all the verbs don't need. The verbs are basically the infinitive; they're not conjugated. Like wir haben, sie haben. So he just learned all the verbs and all the vocabulary he needed, memorized the whole thing, and gave the talk in German after an afternoon of learning. Did he sound good? No, but he was able to prove a point. I think he lives there now, so speaks much better, I guess. But yeah, if you memorize enough vocab, you can speak with terrible grammar, but you can speak. As long as you're good at memorizing, which if you practice your mnemonic skills, you can become good at memorizing. I'm not great, I'm decent. Can memorize, I mean, I memorized 1,000 words the other day, but it took me hours to do that. But this guy memorized 1,000 in like an hour. So yeah, it can be done, just not to a really high level, but you can get really good at things. The last thing you should do at anything, not only language learning, is give yourself this arbitrary limits of you can't learn this many words a day. You can't. This is impossible. You can't run. You can't lift. You can't bench press more than this many kilos. You can't do. Who says that? Why not just try and then see how much you can do, and then try doing more the next day, and progressively try to increase the amount of increase your performance, and you can get way better if you do it like that instead of just just giving yourself some arbitrary limit and then staying there and staying in the mediocrity zone forever, right? So just keep trying, keep trying to get better numbers every day. Just 20 or 30 mnemonics a day is already a lot. That's hundreds of words a month that you can learn, which is way more than most people learn. So just keep trying to get better.